Hello everybody, and welcome back to Reserve Investments on YouTube. I wanted to take this moment to talk about books that every collector, speculator, or investor in the antiques and collectibles trade should be reading. Regardless of what you collect, regardless of what your passion is, regardless of what you fancy a good investment is, there are several books that every collector or anybody active who collects anything, for whatever reason, even if you just have a passion for it, or if you're on the middle or the other end of the spectrum where you're either speculating or investing in the item, there are certain books that you should read. And regular readers of my column for Antiques and Auction News know that I loathe book reviews, really. I don't do a lot of book reviews, but every now and then a book will come along that will really open up my thinking in a whole new way. And with the decline of the published word in the antiques and collectibles trade due to the advent of videos like this, due to the advent of online forums, due to the advent of a lot of information that's available free online, there aren't too many books published in the antiques and collectibles trade anymore. I mean, it is actually quite sad. I went to my local Barnes & Noble about a week ago. I go there at least twice a month. And their section on the antiques and collectibles trade is literally down to almost like a bookshelf like this and maybe half of it. And that's sad. I mean, there was a time in the trade where you would have 3 of these minimum in every bookstore you'd go to, full of books on the antiques and collectibles trade. So when I come across a book that I think that everybody should read who's active in the trade, I want you guys to know about it. So without further ado, I'm going to recommend one of the best books on the subject of antiques and collectibles that's been written in probably the last 10 years. This book came out around 2010, 2011, and it is such an impactful book. It was written right in the aftermath of the 2008-2009 financial crisis, or known as the Great Recession. The book is called Killer Stuff and Tons of Money by Maureen Stanton. Now, before I get into this book, and I do have some criticisms on the book as well, I do have to tell you this book was written by an outsider to the antiques and collectibles trade. Maureen Stanton has admitted multiple times that she is not a hardcore collector. She is not somebody who is used to attending high-end auctions, flea markets, yard sales, or even just regular antique fairs on a regular basis. She wrote this book because she has a friend who she knew from college who is active as a high-end dealer in the antiques trade. And they use a pseudonym for his name in the book because they didn't want to give away his real identity, because he's a no-nonsense guy that tells you exactly the way it is. The name they use in the book is Kurt Avery, okay? Now, what makes this book so fascinating is, I don't know if you can relate to this. If you ever got a job, maybe in corporate America or at a fast food restaurant, it could be anything, and you have no experience in that position, but you took the job, and you go in and they tell you this is the way that we do things, and we follow A, B, C procedure. And the minute they tell you that, you go, well, wait a minute, there's a better way to do this. Why are these guys doing everything by the book or by procedure that was written who knows how long ago, okay? The reason why I'm using that analogy to compare to this book is that's the type of mindset that Maureen Stanton, the author of this book, brings to the antiques and collectibles trade. She's just viewing it as an outsider. In fact, she even lists in, I think, the prologue of this book, she even apologizes that she may get some terms wrong because she literally knows nothing at the onset of this book, well, very limited knowledge, of the antiques and collectibles trade. Now, you're going to wonder, why is Sean recommending you read a book written by an outsider from the antiques and collectibles trade? The viewpoint that she writes from is fantastic, okay? She follows a high-end antique dealer, well, a fairly high-end. He's probably really, in all logic, in probably the middle tier of antique dealers, who goes in, they talk about collectibles, they talk about investing in antiques, they talk about the whole market, how much fraud is in the marketplace, believe it or not. There's even a chapter called Captain Antiques where they go in and they interview high-end comic book dealers. Metropolis Collectibles out of New York is listed in this book. There's even an interview with Vincent, who was one of the owners. It's spectacular. They go in and they look at the whole collectibles market at one point, They analyze and contrast the antiques trade, meaning items that are 100 years or older, what's happening in that market versus what's happening in the modern day mass-produced collectibles trade. And for that reason alone, this book is worth it. Now, this book is not without some criticisms, which I alluded to earlier. I do want to bring that to your attention. First, you have to understand this book was written 2010, 2011 it came out. So obviously it was already in the works 2008, 2009. At that point in our nation's history and the world, we were engulfed in a Great Recession. So you have to understand the point of view that it's coming from, because a lot of it is very pessimistic, especially in the higher end antiques trade, okay? There's a lot of topics on the subject of American bottle collecting, American glass, a lot of mention of primitive antiques, a little bit of vintage advertising, a lot on like Pilgrim era antiques, a lot of primitives, woodworking antiques, stuff of that nature, okay? So you have to kind of understand and be willing to, if you're like a person who collects video games or comic books or Lego sets or even coins and currency, if you're going to pick up this book, there may be times where you're going to struggle through it. You're going to go, well, I really don't want to hear about a guy collecting, you know, bottles that were 100 or 200 years old, or you know, 18th century blanket boxes and stuff of that nature. And that is all in this book. You're going to come across it, okay? But I encourage you to keep reading and trudge along. It's very insightful. If you've ever heard of Brimfield, Brimfield is a well-known flea market that happens several times a year up in Massachusetts. That's mentioned routinely in this book. The thing to keep in mind, though, and the one thing that I tell people, you got to remember, the mindset of most people was a lot different in 2010, 2009, 2008 because of the Great Recession. So there's a lot of pessimism in this book concerning the antiques trade and even the collectibles trade, okay? So that's my only criticism of the book. Aside from that, the book goes into detail on even, like Kurt Avery, he uses a pseudonym so that he can speak freely to the audience. And one of the things he talks about is auction houses that he visits, how he learned his knowledge in the trade, what he was looking for to buy and sell. He gives an overview of various markets in the antiques and collectibles trade. He also goes into detail about some of the more shady, unethical practices that engulf the whole trade, which I think is spectacular. Even towards the end of the book, they go to a toy show. So there's things that appeal to collectors of toys, mass-produced products, comic books, stuff of that nature as well. This book is by far one of the books that I always recommend that somebody read before watching any of the wonderful reality shows based on the antiques and collectibles trade. I always tell them, you have to get an unbiased view, and this is it. And I say that loosely because, really, to be honest, Kurt Avery, the pseudonym for the character in the book, and even Maureen Stanton, they both have biased views of what they're seeing in the trade at the time this book is being written. So I want to put that out there. That's my only criticism. Another criticism that I do have of the book details a lot with antiques. There is collectibles mentioned towards the end, but most of this is geared towards the higher end, again, the mid and higher end tier of antique collecting. So a lot of people who do collect mass-produced collectibles who read this book will sometimes find it boring for the first couple of chapters. And then when they start to be able to relate it to other objects that they have a passion for, that they collect, invest, and speculate in, that's when they go, oh, it starts to click. Another criticism that I have in the book, this book is not meant to be, and I want to just put this out there if there's any speculators out there watching this video who are new to the antiques and collectibles trade. This book is not going to teach you what to buy, what to sell, what you should be looking for. You can go to a yard sale or flea market, buy something for $100 and flip it for $500 or what have you. That's not what this book is for, okay? This is not a get-rich-quick book, and that's why I love it. This is a book for somebody who has extensive knowledge and passion for the antiques and collectibles trade and says, you know what, I want to learn more. What else can I read that's out there that I can absorb the information and get something out and just see a different viewpoint of the trade for somebody who really A lot of people are going to look at Kurt Avery and they're going to go, man, I wish I had his life. And you read the book, and he's just a guy doing what he knows and doing what he loves, and he's just trying to get through his day, trying to pay bills and raise his family. At the end of the day, yes, he has an excellent, excellent job. I mean, he's out there picking antiques pretty much for a living. So don't get me wrong, I understand that a lot of people would envy what he does for a living, but at the end of the day, you got to look at it from his perspective. He's trying to grow his business and become even more knowledgeable and wealthier in the trade, both in knowledge-wise and financially. So that's what makes this book a must-read, okay? The book can be had. You can even get it at Amazon. I think it'll cost you less than $20, okay? Or you can download it, those of you that have a Kindle or an iPad. You can download it to those devices. I think it's 15 to 20 bucks if you download it as well. I have both versions. I actually have this on my iPad, and of course I bought a physical copy just to put in my bookshelf. One of the things I will be going over with you guys is I do have quite an extensive collection. You can kind of see some of it up here in the antiques and collectibles trade on books that I recommend. The problem that I have with a lot of the stuff appearing on the internet, on online forums, even on the reality shows like American Pickers, Pawn Stars, some of the earlier reality shows like Toy Hunters, a lot of that was very biased in nature, and I think that helped bring about a lot of speculators into the market. I want to talk more of that in upcoming videos, the effect that reality television shows geared towards antiques and collectibles, their impact on the trade. Matter of fact, I have another video planned that you'll see shortly on that topic. But in the meantime, I just want to alert you guys that there are still books being written on the antiques and collectibles trade that is not a price guide, that is really well done, and does change your point of view and perspective on things happening in the trade. And anytime one of these books is written, I will tell you guys about it, either through my articles or through this YouTube channel. Because I really think that's one of the things that's missing in the trade. You know, the media centers around a lot of headlines that deal with coins that sell for, you know, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, or vintage video games that sell for $30,000. In all reality, and to be fair, I'm involved in that part of the trade as well, but in all reality, the average person is not buying a $30,000 video game or a $1 million coin or a $10,000 piece of currency, okay? The average person is buying stuff that is readily available out there. Maybe a little hard to find, but at the same time, they're speculating, they're investing in it, or they're buying it just because they love it, and there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is when you get unbiased information from other speculators and people who don't understand the market that are telling you, this is going to be a great investment, buy it. And a lot of the online collecting forums, this is one quick criticism before I end the video, are geared towards speculation. That's why I still have accounts registered with a lot of the popular online video game and pop culture based forums. But aside from coin collecting forums, I'm really not involved in like vintage Star Wars collecting forums, comic book forums, video game forums. Reason being is there's too many speculators that have taken over those forums, and they're putting out wrong, false, or flat out misleading information to engage other collectors or speculators with their viewpoint, which is very flawed, okay? So I want to put this out there. This book, I think it's about 300 pages. It's an excellent read. I mean, even if you have to struggle through it because you're not into some of the stuff they're talking about, I assure you, the economic lessons taught in this book alone, just on basic supply and demand, are something that every collector, investor, and speculator need to understand. This book will help you more than any other book I've read on the antiques and collectibles trade within the last 5 to 10 years, okay? Get a copy of this book and read it, okay? Again, as always, don't know how many people will view this video due to the wonderful YouTube algorithms, but I thank you. If you do get enjoyment out of my videos or anything that I'm talking about, like, comment, subscribe, share the video. Again, you leave feedback or a comment on the video, I may respond in kind. I appreciate all you guys for watching, and that's all I have. Thank you.